So the next thing I want to talk about is break tags. I briefly talked about this in the previous videos, but break tags is something that you're going to use over and over again, and most likely you will run into them, or you'll run into a situation where you will need to use them. So what are break tags? Break tags are essentially pressing the enter key on your keyboard. So for example, we have sentence, and then we have the sentence, and then we press the enter on our keyboard, and as you can see, it goes down. So that's what break tags essentially do, but they do them within the HTML world. So if you want to spread images apart and have one image at the top, maybe a few breaks in between, and then put an image, and then maybe break it, and then have a few paragraphs and break that paragraph apart, it really adds white space and makes things look a lot nicer so that they're not all clumped together. So that's really what break tags are all about. Now, break tags, you'll see them sometimes and they'll look like this. So I talked about this previously, and I might have shown it to you previously, but they typically look like this. So let me make it a little bigger here. So they have the brackets around them like usual, and then they have BR. So BR lowercase, BR capitalized, it doesn't really matter. So I like to keep things consistently, so I try to do things lowercase. So it's really up to you, and because if you're thinking, does it really matter? Well, there you go. Now, break tags, they sometimes look like this, and then of course, the newer ones may look like this, where it has a BR space slash, but they do the same thing. Now, the break tag is not having, they don't have an open tag and close tag. It's just combined together. So essentially the break tag is the open and close tag itself. So this is one of the special cases where, in this case, there isn't really an open and close. So what's nice about breaks is that, let's say, for example, you have a word, like a whole paragraph. So we have paragraph like this. So we do this, and I'll make this, I'll make a paragraph like this. Okay, so this is a paragraph. What's nice about the break is, yes, if you are using a HTML WYSIWYG editor like Composer, you can simply go through and press enter, right? Now, if you're looking at the code from the standpoint of just the code itself, and you want to put breaks into the paragraph or the images, and it's just not doing it, then you can always go into the code and you can find where there should be breaks and just put the BR tag. You can put the BR tag here, and let's say I want to break here, I want to break here, and I want to break maybe here, here, and here. So when I copy this over, let's say for example into Composer, into the source tag, maybe under right here, you can see that there are breaks. So we've broken it up here. Now, if we go back to the source tab and we say, okay, it had a break, but we want an additional break to create kind of a empty space or a line in between these paragraphs. So if that's the case, then all I have to do is add two breaks connected to each other. So there we go. So obviously adding breaks is very, very easy. And when I go back to the normal view, I'm able to see that. So like I said, the majority of cases you can use a WYSIWYG editor, but there are some cases that you will run into where the editor is messing up, or even WordPress. I've seen sometimes when editing WordPress editors, sometimes you're editing the code and you're running into issues. And by knowing that I can go to the source code and simply add a break tag to the source code, it makes life a lot easier. So same thing with images. You can add an image. So we can go here. We can add an image like so. But let's say, for example, that it looks like this. You know, you got text here, and then you got an image here. So what I would personally do is I would find with a WYSIWYG editor, obviously all you have to do is press enter, right? But if you were reading the code and you couldn't figure out why maybe the editor was doing that, you could find the image, which is defined by the image tag right here, which you'll learn later on. But once you find that, all I have to do is add a break tag to it. Let's say, for example, I want to add 3 break tags. Go back to normal view, and you can see that there have been 3 break tags right here. So that's what the break tag does, and it actually comes in very, very handy in many, many cases. You wouldn't believe how many cases it would come in handy, and it doesn't really make sense right now, but it'll make a lot more sense when you begin to set up your landing pages, set up your WordPress sites and everything like that. And it just makes life a lot easier when you understand how to use it. So that's how simple a break tag is. Just remember it's a BR, or sometimes it's BR/ as well. So I like to just keep it simple, stick with that, and there you go. So let's talk about text formatting. Basically bolding words, italicizing words, or even underlining words. Now, this is a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to break it down. Now, as you can see here, it starts with the span tag, and we have span style equals quotation, quotation. And within the quotation, you pretty much have all the formatting. And then, of course, you close that span tag off right here. Now, as you read it, it'll make more sense. So font weight, or if you think about weight, an analogy of, how heavy something is or something light. Bold is something that, if you think about bold and you bold a letter, and if you were to be able to kind of measure the weight of a letter and you bold it, you make the font weight bold. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to give you some analogies that would make sense. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but these are things that I use in my own brain to memorize these things. So font weight equals bold. Font style, we have different styles like font, we have italicize, we have other different styles. And then of course we have text decoration. So you could decorate the text with an underline. So it would make more sense if we go back over to Composer here. And like I said in the beginning, I would recommend you as much as possible to do a step and then take a look at the source code, and then do a step and then take a look at the source code. So what I mean by that is, remember, bold the word, then look at the source code, see what changes before you do anything else, and then go back, italicize it, see what changed. And then what I would do from that point would be try to memorize that. Now, if I were you, I wouldn't really go all out. I would just memorize the basics, so bold, italicize, and underline, because that's the main stuff that you're going to use. If you get all fancy, that's fine, but if you do that, go with Composer and just copy and paste the code into the editor, whatever that might be using. So if we go back here right now, the hello tag or the hello word has nothing around it except for break tags and the basic structure, right? Now, if I go to normal and I make it a larger font size, and I go back to source, we can see that the only change mainly is that there is a big tag surrounding it, right? Now, let's make it bold. So we'll start from scratch, say hello. This is a test. We'll just make it bold, and let's see what happens. So if we go back to the source, we can see that it says span style, quotation, quotation, and it says font weight bold, and that's all it says. So all you have to do is memorize this right here. So that's all you have to memorize. So with span style, quotation, quotation, within that, font dash weight, colon, space, bold. Okay. So now let's remove the bold. And let's just do it italicize. If we click on source and you take a look at it, it says span style, quotation, quotation, font dash style, colon, space, italic. So you're basically saying the font style is italic. And then you put a semicolon right here if you want to add more. So if we want to add something like font dash weight, colon, bold, we could do that as well. And we can see that it has bold and italicize. Now, if we add a underline and we click on source, we can see that text decoration, so text dash decoration, colon, space, underline. The semicolon, as you can see, kind of separates the differences. So we have 3 different items here, and you can see that this, after this, we put a semicolon to say that we're separating this and this. So this is a new item. We have a semicolon and then a new item. So that's what I recommend that you do. There's a lot of different formatting if you want to learn. So if we uncheck all of these and you go up to the top and click on format, you can see that Composer gives you a lot more options, such as font, different types of font. You have sizes, different types of sizes. You have text style. So besides bold, italicize, and underline, you have strike through, superscript, subscript, fixed width, and other types of text styles. But the majority of the time, you're going to use these 3. You're rarely going to use all of these other ones. So that's why I wanted to show you this. Then, of course, you have text color. So if we stick with the simplicity and we just change this to say red, click OK. You can see that the span style, same thing. It says color dash red. So HTML, as you can see, is one of the easiest languages because what you see is what you get. And when you say like color red, it's pretty obvious that the color in this case is red. So if you wanted to hack HTML code and you had a bunch of code, you could literally go through it and figure out what it is about simply by learning these basics that I'm teaching you in this video course and then just testing it out yourself and by trial and error. Because remember, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff will only stick in your mind if you practice. So with that said, hope you enjoyed this video. Let's move on to the next video. So let's talk about how to create lists. And I'm going to talk about 2 different types of lists, ordered lists and unordered lists, or what we call bulleted lists. And these are things that you are going to use often. So the first thing I want to do is show you what the unordered list looks like. And obviously unordered meaning bulleted. So we have something like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So this would be considered a unordered list. Okay, so if we think about the abbreviation of an unordered list, it is unordered list, right? So that's the tag, UL. So we have bracket, you make it a little bigger. And then to close that bracket, of course, it is UL and then bracket and the slash, right? Now, lists are a little bit different than normal tags because within each list, you have the actual LI. So LI stands for the bullet or the list item. All right, so you can have as many LIs as you want to. So you're going to need to have LI and /LI. So this tells us right here that this is a list. So let me do this again. Let's say, for example, we want to duplicate dog, cat. So we start the unordered list with this tag, right? And then we finish the list with this tag. Now, each one of these items are going to be this, right? So this is going to be dog, cat, and hamster. Pretty simple, right? So after you understand that concept that you have the open tag here, the close tag here, and then the items that are surrounded by the li tag. So li dog / li cat, close the tag, li hamster, and then close that tag. All right. So now that you understand that, what I want to talk about now is ordered lists. Now, ordered lists are going to be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So if I switch it to this, the only items that need to change here are the open tag and the close tag. Everything else, the LIs stay the same. Now, if you think about the abbreviation for ordered list, that's OL, right? OL. Pretty simple. So we open this order list, we have the 3 items, and then of course, right below that, we close the /OL, right? So that's basically how to create an order list. So once you have that concept and understanding of an unordered list and an order list, it's the same thing except for the open and close tag, or the main ones. Now, if we head on over to Composer here, you can actually see the same thing. So if I create a unordered list, and we'll do the same thing, we'll say dog, cat, hamster, and maybe we'll throw a few things other than that inside. We could say gecko. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Now, if I go to source code here, you can see that it is UL and then close UL, right? And then of course, in between the unordered list, we have LI and then LI. Now, as far as formatting goes, you notice that it says big, 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 and then /big. So that's how to create it, and that's how easy it is. Now, if I were to highlight this and put it into ordered or numbered lists, we call it order lists, because if you go to source and you look at it, the only thing that has changed is the UL to OL. So unordered list changed to the ordered list, and then we close that tag down. So if you can understand this process, then creating lists of 2 different types is very, very easy to do. So with that said, let's move on to the next video. Okay, so welcome back. In this particular video, we are going to discuss the image tag. And this tag you are going to run into over and over again. Now, you're looking at this tag thinking, wow, this is kind of complicated. And not really. If we, basically the image tag really looks like this. The rest of it I'll explain in just a minute. So image tag allows you to grab any image, whether it's an external image from a different website or even your internal image that might be sitting on your website. It acts just like a hyperlink, and which you'll learn later on. But where it starts out with is the tag here, of course, these brackets surrounding it, and it starts with IMG, standing for image for short. And then you put a space, and then you put SRC, which stands for source, or basically image source equals quotations, and then of course the file name inside. Now, like I said, this could be a file that is sitting on your server. It doesn't necessarily have to be a .jpeg or .jpg. It can be a .png file. It can be a .gif. Any sort of image file, it will work. So this could link here. This could link to www.yourdomain.com/image. name.jpg, or whatever the image extension might be. So that's how easy it is to create a image tag. And without having to even go to Composer, you can simply type this in and pull any image that you want in. Now, what you saw earlier was the alt tag. So if we add an alt tag, so after we've done this, after the quotation has closed that URL off, now we can put a space and we can put the word alt equals quotation quotation. And alt tag is basically going to tell Google or any other search engine robot what the image is all about. So what you're doing is you're taking a step further and making it more search engine friendly. So the alt tag is pointing to what it is all about. So let's say, for example, this is an image of a puppy. So let's say a golden retriever puppy. So you would type in golden retriever puppy, and you might be able to type in what it's doing. Maybe it's biting, and your image is about how to stop puppies from biting. So Google will read that and it will say, okay, this must be about golden retriever puppy biting. Does the content that is surrounding it actually relate to this? And if it does, then that's a good sign. Now, the other stuff that you saw was what we call the style, the width, and height. Now, typically, you're not going to run into that unless you want to resize the image. So I'm not really going to teach you that right now. I would rather you go to Composer and test it out there, but I don't want to overwhelm you, and I want you to just memorize that you have the tag here. So let's do that again. So starting from scratch, image source, remember? So I like to start with the bracket. Now, the image tag does not have a close tag necessarily. It's just img src, so image source equals that. So I like to do that. And then I put the file name inside and the extension. And that's essentially it. And then alt tag equals quotation quotation, and then the SEO friendly keyword. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, whenever you add the width and the height, that is only if you want to resize it. So if you want to resize it, then you can add a width and height. But for now, I just want you to learn the basics, and let's jump on over to Composer and I'll show you. So if I go to Composer here, and let's say, for example, that I'm going to center align this image, I'm going to go ahead and click on image, and I'm going to go ahead and find an image. Now, these images are on my computer, obviously. So if I click on do not use alternate text, and typically with Composer, if you do not enter alternate text, it will ask you and it will give you a warning message. So you want to enter the alternate text, which is basically what Google robots see to see what your image is all about. So we can say how to say puppy biting, and we'll click OK, and there we go. So obviously this is not an image of a puppy biting, but I'm just using this as an example. Now if you click on source here, you will see that we can see the IMG and the SRC down here. Now of course there's a style down here which is telling us the style and the alt tag. But if we were to remove this, this is what it would look like. We can see IMG SRC equals the location of the file. Now, I've said this before, but Composer will generally directly link to your computer, and you don't want that. You want it to link to your website or to the file. So if this HTML file is located in the same folder as your image, then you can simply remove everything and just simply put the file name between the quotations. And that's probably the easiest way to go. Now, if your image is in a specific location on your website, the easiest thing to do is find the location and then put the location here. Just make sure that this is not linking to your computer, because when you upload it to the internet, nobody else can see your computer except for you. So it may work for you, but it's not going to work for everybody else. So I'm going to leave it at that, and so we can keep it simple. But if you ever want to resize it via Composer without needing to know all the width and height and all the styling and stuff like that, you can always double click it and go to dimensions, and you have the actual size here. You can do custom size. And what I like to do is make sure that the constraint option is selected, simply because if a picture, let's say for example, is 900 by 597, you don't want to distort it when you decrease it down to 500. You want to keep the width and the height scale the same. So when I press OK, it looks like this, right? Now, if I don't press the constraints, as you saw I did earlier, and I just do something like 500 and I press OK, you can see how it has distorted the image itself. So that's another little tip that I have with utilizing Composer. So by all means, if you want to stick with Composer, great, that's fine. But I'd highly recommend you at least memorize this simple tag, because when it comes to editing with WordPress or any type of content management system that utilizes an HTML editor, sometimes you're going to run into snags along the way. And if you know this tag, then you can get past simple roadblocks. All right, so hope you enjoyed that video, and we'll move on to the next one. So I want to just say congratulations on reaching the end of this video course. This is video number 9, and we are going to talk about hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are things that you're going to run into a majority of the time, simply because depending on what you want to do, majority of the time you're going to want to link to an external website from a specific keyword, what we call anchor text, and you may want to link within your website itself. So what I found over the years is a lot of the stuff that I've taught you, you will see. But when it comes to hyperlinks, this is one of the main things that you're going to see, because linking to other websites or even within your website is very, very important. And not just linking, being able to know how to link, and then when somebody clicks on that link, it doesn't exit your website, but instead it opens it in a new window, so people stay on your website. You know, getting it so that the link goes in a new window is important to know as well. So let me explain to you in a lot more detail so that you fully understand. So if at this point you're thinking, well, I'm a little bit confused here, it's okay. So let's start from scratch. If we think about it, before we even talk about this, let's say, for example, that we have a paragraph. And on that paragraph, or even that image, which we'll talk about later, we want to turn maybe this specific keyword. Let's say, for example, at the end of the paragraph, it says click here, and we want to turn that into a hyperlink. So the question is, how do we turn this word into a link so that we link from here to an external page and so forth? So what I'm highlighting right here is what we call the anchor text. And you'll hear this being thrown around a lot, but the anchor text is the text that is linking to an external website or to an internal URL. So now that you understand that, you can hyperlink this and turn that into anchor text. You can anchor text any word that you want, or even any image. So to break things down here, this is essentially what it looks like. So you need the anchor text, right? Which is going to be the text that you highlight. And then the hyperlink is going to be the link that you're going to link them to. And then this is merely just the action. So when they click on the hyperlink and they read the anchor text and they click on it, then they go to another website or URL. So that's how the process works. And now once you understand the process here, let's talk about how to break it down. So let's say we'll use click here because that's common. So the tag looks like this. Bracket, obviously, right? And it starts with an A. So I like to do this A and then bracket /A, because it gets a little bit more complicated after this, but not as complicated. So it's generally better to just start with that and /A. After the A, you put href equals quotation, quotation. And within the quotation, you want to put the URL or the hyperlink within the quotations. So we're going to do http://www.yourdomain.com. So this could be within your website, or it could be any website. It doesn't matter. Now, what I'd highly recommend is if it is your own website, then you can leave it like that. Now, within here, you're going to want to put the anchor text. So the anchor text was click here, right? So if I were to just finish at this point and I were to click the click here, then it's going to bring me to this URL right here. Now, this is something that I would use if I were linking or interlinking within my own website, because I don't really want it to open in a brand new window. Now, if I were to link to an external website and I want people to stay on my website as well, then here's what I would do. So we go back over to here, and before this end tag, or the original tag here, bracket closes, we put another space, and we put the word target, and we do equals, quotation, quotation, and then we put underscore blank. Now, what in the world does that mean? Well, target means where you want them to go. So what it means is we open it in a new window. So underscore blank means in a new window. And this is essentially just going to have to memorize this. But if you want them to open a brand new window, I would put that. So if you can get to this point, just adding the underscore blank and target equals quotation, underscore blank, quotation, close that off, you'll open it in a brand new window. So believe it or not, as simple as this can be, if you memorize it, you'll be set as far as creating hyperlinks and creating backlinks to other sites. And this is something that you're going to run into many, many times in the future. And you can do the same thing if this is a zip file. Let's say, for example, that you want people to download a zip file. Then you can simply link them to the zip file. So yourdomain.com, let's say it is in the downloads folder and it's called 123.zip or even 123.mp4, a video file. So as long as you have the URL that links to whatever you might want them to do, download the zip, watch a video, go to a blog or website, that's where you're going to put it here. So this can apply to many, many different cases, but we're just creating a link to link them directly to something. And the target underscore blank works in all of these cases, whether it's an MP4 file, a zip file, or whatever. You can do the same thing. All right. Now that you understand this, you're good to go. But we can always go back over to here and we can go here. We're going to, let's say, we'll put a center line. We'll do click here. And I'm going to make it bold a little bit bigger so you can see it. But if you highlight it, click on link, and you link them to a location, google.com, for example, you can do link is to be opened in a new window. And to be honest, you're not really going to use all these other ones. Mainly, you're going to use the open in new window or open in the same window. So if I go ahead and click OK, click on source code, then you'll be able to see the actual code. So embedded into here, if you notice, it says ahref equals quotations, the URL, quotations, space, target equals quotations underscore blank, quotations. And then within these here, we have the anchor text, and then we close the A tag. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, if we were to hyperlink an image, on the other hand, you can see what it looks like. So let's find an image here. Now within Composer, you can go to link and you can actually link it over here. Now, if we take a look at the source code here, you will see that the link is here. Now, as you can see, the link is outside of the image. So we have the link here. We haven't closed the A tag yet. We put the image here, and then we close the A tag. So that the image essentially is like the anchor text. So if I go back over to here, we can do that by simply putting the image, replacing the click here with the image code. And you could do the same thing with other media as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video course as much as I enjoyed teaching you, and make sure that you go back. Some of this is memorization, and I would say just utilize Composer and tweak it and learn it every step of the way. Make one step, look at the code, see what changed, and as you do it more and more and more and practice and practice and practice, it'll stick in your mind, you'll memorize it, and you'll be good to go when that time comes when you're utilizing something like WordPress or anything like that, and you run into a snag.